Hello, and thank you for joining us for episode 70 of the Aviation News Talk podcast, where we bring you general aviation news and relevant information that pilots like you can put to use someday. Today, I'm going to be talking about AirVenture in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Plus, coming up in the news, AirVenture hasn't really started yet, but sadly, over the weekend, we lost two warbirds, both of which may have been headed to AirVenture, and we'll tell you about those accidents and where you can see the video of one of them. Plus, I'm going to share the details of how you can listen and watch the first Aviation News Talk live shows produced here from the ground of AirVenture. Hope you'll join us later this week and watch those shows with us. Welcome to Aviation News Talk, where we talk about general aviation. I'm Max Truscott. I'm here to educate and inform you as a pilot or student pilot, and hopefully we try and have a little fun along the way. And I intend to share my over 40 years of experience as a licensed pilot, the 2008 National Flight Instructor of the Year, and also a specialist in Cirrus aircraft like the SR-20 and SR-22. Now, if you are new to our show, last week in episode 69, we talked with EAA CEO Jack Pelton, who gave us a preview of what's to come this week at AirVenture. So if you missed that episode, you may want to check it out. And I should mention that this show is going to be much shorter than usual, as I'm recording it from my hotel room at AirVenture in Oshkosh. I arrived pretty late, and I didn't get a whole lot of sleep before boarding my American Airlines flight to fly out here earlier today. All this and more, and the news starts now. From the FAA, a couple of episodes ago, we mentioned that they were recruiting air traffic controllers. Well, apparently they chose not to. According to their website, they say, quote, the FAA will reschedule the nationwide recruitment effort for air traffic controllers slated for June 27th. We will keep everyone updated as we develop a new recruiting schedule. So if you're interested in being an air traffic controller, stand by. I guess that was kind of a false start that they had, which we announced with them earlier in the month. And from avweb.com, pilot killed in jet warbird crash. The pilot of a de Havilland Venom jet warbird was killed, 2 people on the ground injured, and about 50 cows had to be euthanized when the aircraft crashed into a calving barn on a dairy farm near Sheboygan, Wisconsin on Friday, July 20th. The aircraft, owned by World Heritage Air Museum in Detroit, was one of dozens of warbirds taking part in the Great Air Clinic, which is a gathering of antique aircraft held at Sheboygan County Memorial Airport. The aircraft crashed shortly after takeoff and came to rest on the farm less than half a mile from the airport. The pilot was killed instantly. Witnesses said the aircraft was one of 2 aircraft that took off from the airport as part of the clinic. The event culminates with a departure for AirVenture Oshkosh, which begins on Monday. The clinic also trains pilots to take part in the mass arrival of T-28 Trojans to AirVenture. A total of 865 Venoms were built in the late 1940s and early 1950s, and there are a handful left flying. AirVenture lists a Venom as part of the event commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Royal Air Force, but it hasn't confirmed that this aircraft was to be in the show. And, of course, we talked with Jack Pelton last week. He mentioned the 100th anniversary and that there were going to be a number of historic jets from the Royal Air Force, of which this aircraft type was certainly one of them. From CNN, Florida plane crash causes a death investigation. A World War II-era military aircraft carrying 13 passengers crashed and caught fire shortly after takeoff in central Texas on Saturday. All passengers on board the cargo plane survived and were able to exit the aircraft, according to Burnett County Sheriff's Office. In addition to several minor injuries, one person was lifted by a helicopter to a medical center, they said. The aircraft, a vintage Douglas C-47 named Blue Bonnet Belle, was on its way to AirVenture in Wisconsin when it crashed in the town of Burnett. In a video of the incident, the plane can be seen dipping dangerously to the left just after takeoff. The plane's wing hits the ground and the aircraft comes to a stop as it bursts into flames. Chris Dowell, a staff member in the Highland Lake Squadron of the Commander of Air Force, which owns the plane, said that the aircraft was a total loss. Quote, we're fortunate that everybody that was on board the aircraft got out of the aircraft safely with a few minor injuries, Dowell said. He added that while some of the passengers were volunteers with the Commemorative Air Force, others were guests and family members. And I've looked online, I found 2 videos of this crash, and I'm going to post both of those in the show notes. It's kind of interesting and a little bit difficult to ascertain exactly what happened. The videos were shot from 2 different angles, and in one of them, the person shooting started to say a lot of expletives before I could actually see anything going on that was wrong in the video. So I don't know if the aircraft had departed the runway or if perhaps he started to see a little bit of smoke coming out, but there was something apparent that he could see that is not evident in the video. What does happen quite a bit after he starts making those comments when he realizes something's wrong is that as the aircraft rotates, the right wing dips. I'm not sure that it touches the ground at that point, but then the pilot appears to overcompensate, rotates the aircraft to the left, and the left wing then touches the ground. The aircraft starts a ground loop. It caught fire fairly quickly, and according to the crash photos, literally there's nothing left except the tail of the aircraft. So we've lost 2 historic warbirds over this weekend. Fortunately, nobody was killed in this crash in Texas. And that is the news for this week. Now let me tell you about the live shows that we have coming up. And by the way, you may have noticed that I didn't have an episode out last week. That's because I have been really working day and night for almost 2 weeks trying to pull together these live shows. It's involved buying a lot of new equipment, which I have brought with me out here so that we can live stream over Facebook over multiple pages, and also setting up guests for the various shows. So here's what's going on. I have partnered with Lightspeed Aviation, who is providing me space within their tent. And we're going to have live shows starting at 10 a.m. Central Time on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday of this week from the grounds of AirVenture. Now, Lightspeed, of course, is one of the largest manufacturers of active noise-canceling headsets, and I was really delighted they were willing to make some room there for me in their tent. So coming up on Tuesday, we've got 2 ladies of aviation that we'll be interviewing. One is airshow pilot Vicki Benzing, who is going to be flying in the airshow here at AirVenture. She'll be on at 10 o'clock. And then coming up at 10:30, we're going to have Jolie Lucas. Now, Jolie has been writing for AOPA as one of their bloggers for, probably 4 or 5 years now, I would imagine. She's founder of the Mooney Ambassadors group, since she flies a Mooney. But more than that, she is a very strong aviation advocate for her airport down in Central California. So we'll be talking about what she's doing for that. Then coming up on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about weather. And Scott Denstedt, who is an absolute expert on weather, former National Weather Service forecaster, will be with us talking about some of the changes that have just recently been made, both to Sirius XM weather and also to the FISB weather that you can receive for free over ADSB. So look for Scott. We're on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. Coming up on Friday, I'm happy to announce that we have Red Bull Airshow pilot Aaron Fitzgerald. Now, if you're not familiar with his name, that's because he's new to the team, and he's not flying those fixed-wing aircraft that you've come to expect with Red Bull races. He's flying aerobatics in a helicopter. So I think you're really going to enjoy that interview. And here's how it's going to work. The best way to be able to watch us live is to go out on Facebook ahead of time and either go out to, just type this in, facebook.com/lightspeedaviation. And when you get to their page, click on the like button, or go out to my business page, which you can find at facebook.com/Max Trescott, MAXTRESCOTT, and click the like button there. Then when we start our live show, you'll get a notification that says that we are live, and you can just go ahead and click on that notification, and you can watch the live show. Now, we'll also be taking those live shows afterwards, editing them down somewhat, and offering them up as podcasts. Now, the fun thing about the live show is that it will be on video, so you can watch everything that goes on, as well as see what's going on with the crowd there. You can also post comments in real time, and you can also leave questions. Now, we're not going to be able to read everybody's comments and read all your questions, but you do have that ability to interact with us as we are doing the live show. So that's going to be this week, Tuesday, July the 24th, Wednesday the 25th, and Friday the 27th at 10 a.m. Central Time here from the grounds of AirVenture at Oshkosh. Should be great fun. I hope you'll join us for the live show. And if you can't join us for the live show, go ahead and listen for those interviews that will be posted some point after the live shows here as a regular podcast episode. And just to make it a little easier for you, I'll include links in the show notes, which will take you to those Facebook pages, and you can like either one of those. And of course, if you happen to be here at AirVenture, come on out for the show, and it'll be fun talking with you there. Now, I just want to tell you a little bit about my trip out to AirVenture. I flew American Airlines from San Jose to Chicago O'Hare, got at about 2 o'clock, and there I met up with Isaac Alexander. He's a freelance aviation writer out of Seattle, and gave him a lift up to Oshkosh, which was about 2.5 hour drive away. And we then went straight to the kickoff party at the Cirrus tent that I've been invited to. Now, a lot of interesting things happened there. I met a lot of great people, some of whom I've known and others that I was introduced to. So saw Rod Rakic, who I've known for some time. He runs Open Airplane and also Fly Auto. And also ran into, Mark Epner. I had never met him before. He's from Simple Flight Radio podcast. I saw Tom Haynes, vice president of AOPA there. Also saw Richard McSpadden, who's from AOPA's Air Safety Institute, and ran into Rob Mark, who people probably know from this show, as well as the Airplane Geeks. And, I didn't realize until afterwards I hadn't seen him face-to-face for probably 5 years, which is really funny because we talk on the phone quite frequently. And, of course, I used to be on the Airplane Geeks podcast every week. And it just seemed like, we'd seen each other a week ago. We hadn't actually seen each other for quite some time. And now Rob introduced me to a nice lady named Mel, who works for Pilot Getaways magazine. And probably the funniest part was there was a back entrance that they weren't letting people come into to the venue there. And I'm familiar with that because I tried to go in that entrance and had to go walk all the way around and come in where they were checking people in to the party at the Cirrus tent there. And I happened to be standing near the back entrance eating some dinner. And I spotted CEO of EAA, Jack Pelton, drive up in a golf cart with his wife, Rose, just parking a little bit away from that entrance. And I thought, he's going to try and come in the back way. So I walked over to him and joked kind of with him and said, hey, do you have any identification? And sure enough, the security guard wasn't going to let him in. He said his instructions were not to let anybody in through the back entrance. And I said to him, this guy runs the entire place here, and this might be the one exception you want to make. So they let Jack Pelton in through the back. Now, the reason he was there was kind of interesting. After we'd been there for probably an hour and 15 minutes or so, having great food and drink, the CEO of Cirrus, Dale Klappmeyer, got up on stage, and he was there to give a presentation to Jack Pelton. And here's the background story on that. We've talked on this show about how Cirrus Aircraft won the Collier Trophy this year. It turns out that people who win that trophy or companies can have replica copies made. That way, for example, Boeing, which had won a number of Colliers, including for the B-17 way back in the 1930s, they can have duplicate copies of those trophies placed at different locations around the company. And so Cirrus had an extra replica copy made and presented it to Jack Pelton, who accepted it on behalf of the EAA Museum, where it's going to be on display. And, of course, they won that for the Cirrus jet this year. Now, the interesting thing is Cirrus really feels like they kind of started at AirVenture many years ago. Back in the 1980s, the two brothers, Alan and Dale Klappmeyer, came out here when they were offering a kit airplane for sale. And Dale told a pretty funny story. He said that they had their tent there, and they had this huge stack of order forms, and one of them was going to kind of control the crowd, and the other person was going to write up orders. And he said when they left at the end of the week, they still had that same neat stack of order forms that were completely untouched. He said they didn't take any orders at all, but they learned a lot about the process of selling aircraft. So that was a fun event this evening. And that's going to just about wrap it up. Let me mention one other thing. If you happen to have our app, we're going to send out notifications on that before the live shows to remind you. You can get that app for free, and you can find it in the Apple App Store, or you can find it in the Google Play Store, depending upon whether you have an iPhone, iPad, or an Android. It's free download, allows you to listen to the show, and also you can have some bonus content that we post there as well. Plus, occasionally we'll send out a notification to you. Thus far, we've only sent one, but we'll send out our second notification later this week to let people know about the live show. And if I can ask you to help me with just one thing, please think of one person you think might enjoy this show. And you can either show them how to download the apps that I just mentioned, or set them up in something like the Apple Podcast app so that they can listen to the show. Thanks so much. Until next time, fly safely, have fun, and keep the blue side up.